The message came on a Tuesday morning in the year 2347. A small silver drone appeared above the United Nations building in New York City. It moved past every radar system and every defense satellite without making a single alarm go off. The drone stopped in the middle of the sky and projected a hologram, so large that people could see it from miles away. The message was in every language on Earth at the same time. It said that humanity had been invited to compete in the 847th Galactic Olympics. The games would be held on a planet called Varanthos Prime, and every intelligent species in the galaxy would be there. The message said that winning would bring honor, trade deals, and respect from the galactic community. It also said that no species had ever refused the invitation. Lisa Grant was eating breakfast when she saw the news. She was a commander in the newly formed Galactic Relations Division, a small group that handled all contact between Earth and alien species. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, and they were still learning how to deal with beings from other worlds. Her phone rang before she could finish her coffee. It was the Secretary General of the United Nations, asking her to come to headquarters immediately. 3 hours later, Lisa stood in a conference room filled with the most powerful people on Earth. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists all watched her as she read through the invitation details. "We have 6 months to prepare," she said. "The games include events for speed, strength, endurance, intelligence, and something called the Gauntlet. The documentation does not explain what the Gauntlet is." A general named Howard Cole leaned forward. "Do we know anything about our competition?" Lisa nodded and pressed a button on the table. A hologram appeared showing different alien species. The Velthari Dominion has won the last 47 games in a row. Their athletes are genetically enhanced from birth. They are stronger, faster, and smarter than any natural being. She pressed another button, and a new image appeared. The Kralith Collective are a biological species that can adapt their bodies to any environment. If you put them in water, they grow gills. If you put them in fire, their skin becomes heat-resistant. More images followed. The Sindari were insect-like creatures that never got tired. The Morvathi were giants who stood 12 feet tall and could lift buildings. The Zephyrians existed as clouds of gas inside mechanical suits and could move faster than the eye could see. "And then there is us," Lisa said quietly. "Humans. We have no genetic enhancements. We cannot adapt our bodies. We get tired. We break easily. By galactic standards, we are considered one of the weakest intelligent species ever discovered." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, a woman named Patricia Dunn, who served as the President of the United States, spoke up. "Are you saying we should not compete?" Lisa shook her head. "No, I am saying we need to understand what we are walking into. The galaxy has been watching us since we left our solar system. They think we are primitive and weak. If we refuse this invitation, they will see it as proof that they are right. And if we compete and lose badly," asked General Cole. "Then we lose badly," Lisa said. "But at least we will have shown them that we are not afraid." The decision was made that same day. Humanity would compete in the Galaxy Olympics. Lisa was given full authority to assemble the team and prepare them for the games. She started her search at an athletic training center in Colorado Springs. The facility was built into the side of a mountain, and it was where Earth's finest athletes came to push their limits. Lisa walked through the massive gym, watching people train. A young man caught her attention first. His name was Danny Ortiz, and he was running on a track that simulated different terrains. Mountains, deserts, jungles, and Arctic wastelands all appeared beneath his feet as he ran, and he never slowed down. He had already broken every marathon record on Earth, and he was only 24 years old. Lisa watched him finish another lap and approached her with sweat dripping down his face. "Hey, Commander Grant," he said with a respectful nod. "I heard you were looking for volunteers." "I am looking for athletes who are willing to compete against beings that are physically superior to them in every way," Lisa replied. "Athletes who might train for 6 months and still finish last in every event." Danny smiled. "I grew up in a small town in New Mexico. Everyone told me I was too short to be a runner. Everyone told me my legs were not long enough. I spent my whole life proving people wrong." He looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see the stars beyond it. "I would love the chance to prove an entire galaxy wrong." Lisa found her next recruit in a gymnasium on the other side of the facility. Her name was Kate Murphy, and she was a gymnast who had won 4 gold medals in the Earth's Olympics. She moved through the air like she was dancing with gravity itself, spinning and flipping with perfect control. When Kate landed from her final routine, Lisa approached her with the same warning she had given Danny. Kate listened carefully and then laughed. "I have been competing since I was 6 years old," Kate said. "I have broken bones, torn muscles, and had 3 surgeries on my knees. Every time someone told me I was done, I came back stronger." She wiped chalk dust from her hands. "If there are aliens out there who think they can outperform me, I want to look them in the eye and show them what a human being can do." Over the next 3 weeks, Lisa assembled a team of 20 athletes. There was Chris Delgado, a swimmer who could hold his breath for almost 10 minutes. There was Max Turner, a chess grandmaster, who had never lost a match and who agreed to serve as the team's strategist. There was Pete Holloway, a young man fresh out of the academy who became Lisa's assistant and right hand. Each person on the team knew what they were getting into. They understood that the odds were against them. They understood that the galaxy expected them to fail, and they did not care. On the night before they left Earth, Lisa gathered her team in the main hall of the training center. The room was dark, except for a hologram of Varanthos Prime rotating slowly in the center. "In 6 months, we will stand on that planet," Lisa said. "We will compete against species that have been doing this for thousands of years. We will face challenges we cannot even imagine right now. And most of the galaxy believes we have no chance of winning." She paused and looked at each of her athletes in turn. "But here's what they do not understand about humans. We were not built for easy victories. We were built to struggle, to fail, to get back up and to try again. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us dangerous." Danny stepped forward. "Then let us go show them who we are." The next morning, the human delegation boarded the starship Endeavour and left Earth behind. The journey to Varanthos Prime would take 2 months, and Lisa planned to use every second of that time to prepare her team for whatever was waiting for them. As the blue marble of Earth grew smaller in the viewport, Lisa allowed herself one moment of doubt. The galaxy was vast and ancient, and humanity was still learning to walk among the stars. But doubt was a luxury she could not afford. She turned away from the window and went to find her team. They had work to do. The starship Endeavour dropped out of faster-than-light travel. On the edge of the Varanthos system, through the viewport, Lisa and her team got their first look at the planet that would host the Galaxy Olympics. Varanthos Prime was not a natural world. It had been built from scratch by the Galactic Council over 10,000 years ago. The entire surface was covered with stadiums, training centers, living quarters, and entertainment districts. Massive towers reached up into the clouds. Floating platforms drifted through the sky, carrying spectators from one venue to another. "It is beautiful," Kate whispered as she pressed her face against the glass. "It is intimidating," Max replied from behind her. "That is the point. They want us to feel small before we even land." Lisa said nothing. She was too busy counting the ships in orbit. There were thousands of them. Some were sleek in silver, with sharp angles that looked designed for war. Others were organic, like massive living creatures that had grown into the shape of spacecraft. A few were so strange that Lisa could not even tell which end was the front. The Endeavour was the smallest ship in orbit by a significant margin. Pete appeared at Lisa's side with a tablet in his hands. "I have been monitoring their communication channels. The other species are already talking about us." "What are they saying?" Pete hesitated. "They are placing bets on which event we will quit first. The current favorite is the endurance trial. They think we will collapse from heat exhaustion within the first 10 miles. Danny had been listening from across the observation deck. He walked over with his arms crossed. "Then I guess I will have to disappoint them." The Endeavour docked at a station on the planet's outer ring, and the human delegation made their way through a long corridor toward the arrival terminal. The air had a strange smell that Lisa could not identify, somewhere between flowers and metal. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth, which made every step feel like walking through water. The terminal itself was chaos. Beings of every shape and size moved in all directions. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6 or more. A group of Kralith athletes slithered past, their bodies shifting color as they moved. Sindari delegation marched in perfect formation, their insect legs clicking against the floor in unison. And everywhere Lisa looked, she saw eyes turning toward her team. Some were curious. Most were dismissive. A few seemed genuinely amused, as if the humans were a joke that the galaxy was sharing. A tall figure approached them. He was Velthiri, with silver skin and 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He wore a uniform that marked him as an official of the games. "I am Corvax," he said through a translator device attached to his collar. "I will be your liaison during your stay on Varanthos. Prime, welcome to the Galaxy Olympics." His tone made it clear that the welcome was not sincere. Lisa stepped forward and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Corvax looked at it with confusion, then ignored it entirely. "Your quarters are in Sector 12, he continued. "Training facilities are available around the clock. The opening ceremony is in 3 days. I suggest you use that time to familiarize yourselves with the competition. We have questions about some of the events," Lisa said. "The documentation you sent us was incomplete." Corvax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "First-time competitors always have questions. You will learn what you need to know when the events begin. That is the tradition." Danny stepped up beside Lisa. "That does not seem fair. Other species have competed in these games for centuries. They know exactly what to expect. We are going in blind." Corvax's 4 eyes focused on Danny with cold attention. "Fairness is a concept that young species often cling to. Here on Varanthos Prime, we value excellence and strength. If you cannot adapt to unknown challenges, then perhaps you do not belong among the stars." He turned and walked away before anyone could respond. The human quarters in Sector 12 were cramped and uncomfortable. The rooms were designed for species with very different body shapes, so the beds were too hard and the chairs were too tall. The food dispensers offered options that Lisa did not recognize and did not want to try, but her team did not complain. They unpacked their equipment, set up their training schedules, and got to work. That first night, Lisa called a meeting in the common room. Her 20 athletes sat in a circle, their faces tired but determined. "I am not going to lie to you," Lisa said. "We are at a disadvantage. The other species have better technology, better biology, and more experience. They expect us to fail, and they are not even trying to hide it." She paused and looked around the room. "But I did not bring you here to fail. I brought you here because you are the best humanity has to offer. You have spent your entire lives pushing past limits that other people said were impossible. That is exactly what we need to do here." Max pulled out his tablet and projected a hologram into the center of the circle. It showed a breakdown of the competition schedule. "There are 12 events in total," he said. "Endurance trial, aerial agility, aquatic challenge, combat simulation, puzzle chamber, and 7 others. The final event is the gauntlet, which accounts for more points than all other events combined."
Out.
"What do we know about the gauntlet?" asked Chris. Max shook his head. "Almost nothing. The records are sealed. All I know is that it has never been completed by a first-time species. Most teams lose half their athletes before reaching the end." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Kate spoke up. "I have a question. If the Velthiri have won 47 games in a row, how do they keep winning? Even with genetic enhancements, there must be other species that can compete with them." Max exchanged a look with Lisa. "I have been researching that, and I found something interesting." He pulled up another hologram showing competition footage from previous games. "Watch this." The footage showed an endurance trial from 10 years ago. A Velthiri runner was clearly in second place, falling behind a Morvathi athlete. Then, without any explanation, the Morvathi stumbled and fell. The Velthiri passed him and won the race. "This could have been an accident," Danny said. Max nodded and pulled up more footage. Race after race, event after event, the same pattern repeated. Whenever a non-Velthary athlete was about to win, something went wrong. Equipment failures. Mysterious injuries. Judges making calls that seemed to favor the Velthary. They cheat, Pete said quietly. They have been cheating for decades. Lisa nodded. That is my conclusion as well. The Velthary control the funding for these games. They have influence over the officials, and they use that influence to make sure they always come out on top. Danny's hands clenched into fists. So what do we do? File a complaint? Ask them to please stop cheating. No, Lisa said firmly. We do something better. We beat them anyway. She stood up and walked to the center of the room. Listen to me carefully. I know this is not fair. I know the deck is stacked against us. But if we go into these games expecting special treatment, we have already lost. We need to be so good, so undeniable, that no amount of cheating can take our victory away. Kate nodded slowly. Train harder than anyone else. Adapt faster than anyone expects, Max added. And never give up, Danny finished. No matter what they throw at us. Lisa smiled for the first time since they had arrived on Varanthos Prime. Now you are thinking like humans. Get some rest. Training starts at dawn. As her athletes filed out of the room, Lisa stayed behind. She walked to the window and looked out at the alien city spreading in all directions. Lights blinked in towers that reached toward the stars. Ships drifted through the sky like mechanical birds. Somewhere out there, beings who had existed for millennia were laughing at the idea of humans competing in their games. Lisa intended to give them something else to talk about. The opening ceremony of the 847th Galactic Olympics was watched by over 2 trillion beings across the known galaxy. Massive screens floated above Varanthos Prime, broadcasting the event to every corner of civilized space. Ships in orbit projected holograms, so their passengers could watch from their cabins. The central stadium was larger than most cities on Earth. Its seats rose up into the clouds, filled with spectators from hundreds of different worlds. The air hummed with conversation in languages that human ears had never heard before. One by one, the competing species marched into the arena. The Velthary came first, as the reigning champions. Their delegation numbered over 500 athletes, each one a perfect physical specimen, with silver skin and confident strides. The crowd roared with approval as they took their position on the field. The Kralith came next, their bodies shifting through colors like living rainbows. Then the Sindari, moving with mechanical precision. The Morvathi giants shook the ground with each step. The Zephyrians floated in their containment suits, their gaseous forms swirling with anticipation. Species after species entered the arena. Some had been competing for thousands of years. Others were relatively new, though none as new as humanity. The humans came last, their delegation of 20. Walked through the massive entrance gates and onto the field. The stadium, which had been filled with cheering and celebration, went almost completely silent. 2 trillion beings watched as the small group of fragile-looking creatures made their way to their designated position. Lisa walked at the front, her head held high. Behind her came Danny, Kate, Max, Chris, Pete, and the rest of the team. They wore simple blue uniforms with the flag of Earth on their shoulders. Compared to the elaborate costumes of other species, they looked almost plain. A Velthary commentator's voice echoed through the stadium. And finally, we have the humans from the planet Earth. This is their first time competing in the Galactic Olympics. Betting markets suggest they will be eliminated from medal contention by the 3rd event. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Lisa felt her jaw tighten, but she kept walking. When they reached their position on the field, she turned to face her team. Remember why we are here, she said quietly. Not for them. For us. For everyone back home who is watching, ceremony continued with speeches from Galactic Council members. Vorith, the ancient being who served as chief arbiter, spoke about the history of the games and the glory of competition. His words were translated into every language simultaneously. These games represent the finest achievements of intelligent life, Vorath said. Here, we put aside our differences and test ourselves against one another. May the strongest and most excellent species prevail. Lisa noticed that he said strongest, not fairest. The first event began the next morning. It was the endurance trial, a 60-mile race across the volcanic surface of a moon that orbited Varanthos Prime. The atmosphere was thin, gravity was crushing, and the ground radiated heat that would kill most Earth. Creatures in minutes, Danny stood at the starting line with 300 other runners. His suit was specially designed to protect him from the environment, but it was basic technology compared to what the other species had. The Velthari runners had cybernetic implants that regulated their body temperature automatically. The Kralith could literally change their biology to adapt to the heat. The Sindari never got tired. Remember your training, Lisa said through the communication link. Do not try to keep up with them at the start. Pace yourself. Survive the first half, then push in the second. Danny nodded and took his position. His heart was pounding, but his mind was calm. He had run through deserts and mountains and frozen wastelands. He had trained his body to endure things that would break most humans. This was just another race. The starting signal fired, and 300 runners surged forward. The heat hit Danny like a physical wall. Even through his suit, he could feel the volcanic ground radiating warmth through his boots. The thin atmosphere made every breath feel like he was sucking air through a straw, and the gravity made his legs feel like they were wrapped in lead. Within the first 5 miles, it was near the back of the pack. In the human observation room, Pete watched the biometric feeds with growing worry. His core temperature is rising too fast. If he does not slow down, he could collapse. Lisa activated the communication link. Danny, we are seeing elevated readings on your vitals. You need to ease back. Danny's voice came through, ragged but determined. I see the Velthari runners ahead of me. They are not even sweating. Their suits are doing all the work for them. That is not your concern right now. Just focus on finishing. I did not come here to just finish, Commander. At the 30-mile mark, something happened that made Lisa's blood run cold. She was watching the race on the main screen when she noticed a group of Velthari. Runners suddenly changed direction. They veered off the official course and entered a canyon that had been clearly marked as off-limits. The canyon cut through a mountain range and would save them at least 5 miles. Did you see that? Kate shouted, pointing at the screen. They are taking a shortcut. That is against the rules. Max was already checking the official feeds. The judges are not saying anything. They are ignoring it completely. A moment later, a Sindari runner tried to follow the Velthari into the canyon. Immediately, an alarm sounded, and the Sindari was disqualified from the race. How is that possible? Pete asked, his voice rising with anger. The same action, but only one gets punished? Lisa watched as the Velthari runners emerged from the canyon 5 miles ahead of their previous position. They had jumped from the middle of the pack to the front in an instant, and no one was doing anything about it. They control the games, Max said grimly. They make the rules, and they decide when those rules apply. Danny had seen it too. Through his helmet, he watched the silver figures disappear into the canyon and reappear far ahead. For a moment, he felt despair washing over him. What was the point of trying if the competition was rigged from the start? But then, something else rose up inside him. Something that felt like fire in his chest. Hotter than the volcanic ground beneath his feet. Anger. Not the kind of anger that makes you give up. The kind that makes you push harder. He increased his pace. Lisa watched his vitals spike on the monitor. Danny, what are you doing? Your readings are going critical. I am showing them what humans are made of, Danny replied. I am showing them that we do not quit just because the game is unfair. Over the next 30 miles, Danny pushed his body past every limit he had ever known. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned. His suit's cooling system failed twice, and he kept running anyway. Athletes from other species fell around him, unable to handle the brutal conditions. He did not win the race. The Velthari, who had taken the shortcut, finished first, followed by a Kralith, who had adapted heat-resistant skin. Danny finished in 12th place, was barely able to stand when he crossed the finish line, but when he collapsed onto the ground at the end, something strange happened. The crowd, which had been cheering for the Velthary winner, went quiet. And then, slowly, a new sound began. It started in one section of the stadium and spread until it filled the entire arena. Applause. Not for the winner. For the human who had refused to give up. Lisa met Danny at the medical station after the race. His body was covered in burns from where his suit had failed, and his muscles were so cramped that he could barely move. But he was smiling. 12th place, he said weakly. Not bad for a fragile human. Lisa took his hand and squeezed it gently. You did something more important than winning today? You showed them that we do not break. Back in their quarters that night, the team gathered around Danny's bed. The doctor said he would recover fully, but he needed rest before the next event. The cheating is going to continue, Max said quietly. We saw it today, and we will see it again. The Velthary have been doing this for centuries. They are not going to stop just because we are watching. Lisa nodded. Then we need to be so good that even cheating cannot stop us. We need to win by margins so large that no shortcut or bribed judge can take it away. Ain't looked around at her teammates. Is that even possible? Danny opened his eyes and spoke from his bed. I do not know if it is possible, but I know that I am not going to stop trying. And I know that none of you are going to stop either. He was right. No one was going to stop. The games had only just begun. By the 4th day of competition, the human team had not won a single event. They had come close several times, only to have victory snatched away. Through methods that grew more obvious with each passing day, Kate had performed a flawless routine in the aerial agility course, moving through the floating obstacles with grace that made the crowd gasp. She had been leading by a significant margin until the judges announced that she had committed a technical violation during her final sequence. No one could explain what the violation was. The official record simply said that points had been deducted for improper form. She finished in 3rd place. Behind 2 Velthary athletes whose routines had been noticeably less impressive, Chris had competed in the aquatic challenge, a race through underwater tunnels filled with currents and obstacles. The water was near freezing, and most species needed special equipment just to survive. Chris used only a basic breathing apparatus and his own training. He swam faster than anyone expected, pushing his body through temperatures that made his muscles seize with every stroke. He was in 2nd place when his breathing apparatus suddenly malfunctioned. The equipment had been checked twice before the race, and there was no explanation for why it failed. By the time he managed to surface and get emergency air, he had fallen to 5th place. Max had entered the puzzle chamber, a mental challenge that required solving complex problems under time pressure. The chamber adapted to each competitor's known weaknesses, presenting puzzles that specifically targeted their limitations. For Max, it created mathematical equations mixed with sensory distractions and physical obstacles that forced him to solve problems while dodging moving walls. He completed the chamber faster than any Velthary competitor. But when the final scores were announced, he had been given a time penalty for an unexplained rules infraction. He finished 4th. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Every time a human was about to succeed, something went wrong. Equipment failed. Points were deducted. Obstacles appeared that had not been in the official specifications. Lisa had documented everything. She had recordings, data logs, and witness statements from other species who had seen the same things. On the morning of the 5th day, she requested an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. The council chamber was a massive hall at the top of the highest tower on Varanthos Prime. The 12 representatives sat on floating platforms arranged in a circle, their ancient eyes focused on the human who stood in the center of the room. Vorath spoke first. Commander Grant, you have requested this meeting to file a formal complaint. We will hear your concerns. Lisa stood tall, her voice steady, despite the fear that tried to creep into her chest. Honored representatives, I am here to present evidence that the Velthary Dominion has been systematically cheating throughout these games. I have documentation showing equipment tampering, biased judging, and rule violations that were ignored when committed by Velthary athletes. She activated a holographic display and showed the footage from the endurance trial, the Velthri runners taking the shortcut, the Sindari being disqualified for attempting the same thing. This is just one example, Lisa continued. I have dozens more. The aerial agility scoring that penalized our athlete without explanation. The equipment failure in the aquatic challenge that affected only the human competitor. The time penalty in the puzzle chamber that no one can justify. She paused and looked around the chamber. These games are supposed to represent the finest ideals of galactic civilization. Competition based on merit, glory earned through excellence. But what I have witnessed is something very different. I have witnessed a system designed to ensure that the same species wins every time, no matter how good the other competitors are. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Voreth spoke again, and his voice carried something that might have been amusement. Commander Grant, you are young, and your species is new to the galactic community. You do not yet understand how things work among the stars. He leaned forward on his platform. The Velthri Dominion has funded these games for over 3,000 years. They provide the facilities, the technology, and the administration that makes competition possible. Without their support, the Galaxy Olympics would not exist. Lisa felt cold spreading through her chest. Are you saying that they are allowed to cheat because they pay for everything? I am saying that power has its privileges, Vorath replied. The strong make the rules. The weak follow them. This has been the way of the galaxy since before your son was born. Another council member spoke up. He was Morvathi, one of the giant species. What the human says is not wrong. We have all seen the favoritism. We have all been victims of it at one time or another. And yet you continue to participate, Voreth said smoothly. Because the alternative is worse. Being excluded from these games means being excluded from galactic society. It means no trade agreements, no diplomatic recognition, no seat at the table where decisions are made. Lisa understood now. The games were not just a competition. They were a tool of control. A way for the powerful to remind everyone else of their place. So you are telling me that there is no justice here? She said quietly. That my athletes can train harder than anyone else, perform better than anyone else, and still lose because the system is designed to keep them down. Voreth's ancient eyes studied her with something that might have been pity. I am telling you that this is how the galaxy has worked for eons. Your species is welcome to compete, but you should not expect to win. Lisa stood in silence for a moment. She thought about Danny, still recovering from his burns. She thought about Kate, who had performed a flawless routine only to be cheated out of victory. She thought about all 20 of her athletes, who had traveled across the galaxy to compete in games that were rigged against them. And then she did something that surprised everyone in the room, including herself. She smiled. Thank you for your honesty, Arbiter Voreth. I understand the situation clearly now. She turned and walked toward the exit, then stopped at the door and looked back. But I think you have made a mistake. You think that we compete to win? You think that victory is the only thing we care about? But that is not what makes humans special. She paused, choosing her words carefully. What makes us special is that we do not give up, even when the odds are impossible, even when the system is broken, even when everyone tells us we cannot succeed. We keep trying anyway, and sometimes, just sometimes, we find a way to win that nobody expected. She left the chamber without waiting for a response. That night, Lisa gathered her team in their quarters. She told them everything that had happened in the council chamber. She did not hide the truth or try to make it sound better than it was. The games are rigged, she said simply. The Velthiri control everything, and the council is not going to help us. If we want to succeed, we have to do it on our own. The room was quiet. Some of her athletes looked angry. Others looked defeated. Then Max spoke up. There is one event left. The Gauntlet. It accounts for more points than all other events combined. Lisa nodded. What do we know about it? Nothing official. But I have been talking to other species, ones who have competed before. Max pulled up his tablet and showed a rough diagram. The Gauntlet is not a single challenge. It is everything at once. A maze that constantly changes. Physical tests. Mental puzzles. Combat simulations. traps and obstacles designed to eliminate competitors one by one. How do we win? Kate asked. Max hesitated. Every species approaches it the same way. They send in their best individual athlete and hope that one person can survive long enough to reach the end. Has that ever worked for a first-time species? No, the gauntlet has a 90% elimination rate for new competitors. Danny, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. What if we do not send one person? What if we go in together? Everyone turned to look at him. The rules say that the gauntlet is an individual event, Max said. Each species sends one competitor. Does it specifically say that the competitor has to be alone? Danny asked. Or does it just say, each species sends one entry? Max started scrolling through the rules on his tablet. His eyes widened. It says each species may enter one competitor or team in the gauntlet event. Scoring is based on completion percentage and time. Lisa felt something stir in her chest. Hope. So we could send all 20 of us in together, she said slowly. Work as a team instead of trying to survive alone. No species has ever done that, Max said. Everyone treats it as an individual challenge because that is how the Velthari approach it. Their champions are so enhanced that they do not need help. Kate stood up, her eyes bright. But we are not Velthari. We are not enhanced. We are just humans. And humans work together. That is what we do. Danny nodded. Alone, any one of us would fail. But together? Maybe we can do something nobody expects. Lisa looked around the room at her team. 20 humans who had been beaten down by cheaters and corrupt judges. 20 humans who had every reason to give up and go home. But she did not see defeat in their eyes. She saw determination. Then that is what we will do, Lisa said. Tomorrow, we enter the gauntlet together, and we show the galaxy what humanity is really made of. The morning of the gauntlet arrived, with an artificial sunrise that painted the sky in colors no human had ever seen before. The stadium was packed with spectators from across the galaxy, and billions more watched from their home worlds. This was the final event, the one that determined the ultimate champion of the Galaxy Olympics. Lisa stood with her team at the entrance to the gauntlet arena. The structure loomed before them like a living thing, its walls shifting and rearranging themselves in patterns that seemed almost angry. Strange sounds echoed from within, and occasionally a flash of light would illuminate. Something moving in the shadows. The other species had already sent their champions inside. The Velthari had entered Zoroth, their greatest warrior. A massive figure with silver skin and muscles that looked like they had been carved from metal. The Kralith had sent their most adaptable athlete, a being whose body could transform into almost anything. The Sindari champion had entered with mechanical precision, its insect legs moving in perfect rhythm. None of them had returned yet. The gauntlet had a way of taking its time with competitors. Korvax, the Velthari official, approached the human team with barely concealed confusion on his face. This is irregular, he said. Looking at the 20 humans assembled before the entrance, the gauntlet is an individual event. You cannot all enter together. Lisa stepped forward. According to Section 47 of the competition rules, each species may enter one competitor or team in the gauntlet event. We are entering as a team. Korvax's four eyes narrowed. No species has ever done this before, and we will be the first. For a moment, Lisa thought he would refuse, but Korvax simply shrugged and stepped aside. Very well. The rules allow it, though I wonder if you understand what you are walking into. Lisa turned to face her team. Danny was at her side, his burns healed, but his determination stronger than ever. Kate stood ready, her body coiled with athletic energy. Max had a tablet in his hands, prepared to analyze and solve whatever puzzles they encountered. Chris and the others formed a tight group, each one prepared to contribute their unique skills. Whatever's in there, we face it together, Lisa said. No one gets left behind. No one fights alone. That is what makes us human. They walked through the entrance as one. The gauntlet swallowed them immediately. The walls shifted the moment they were inside, cutting off the exit and plunging them into a maze that seemed to stretch in all directions. The air was thick with a strange mist that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Stay close, Lisa ordered. Max, can you map this? Max was already working on his tablet. The walls are changing too quickly, but I am tracking our movement. If we keep going forward, we should reach the first challenge chamber. They moved as a unit, with Danny at the front and Kate watching their backs. The maze twisted and turned, and more than once a wall appeared out of nowhere to block their path. But they adapted quickly, finding new routes and helping each other over obstacles that would have stopped any individual. The first challenge chamber was a massive room filled with spinning blades and moving platforms. A single path led across the room, but it required perfect timing and athletic ability to navigate. Kate stepped forward. I have this. She studied the pattern of the blades for a moment, then began to move. Her body twisted and spun through the obstacles with incredible grace, avoiding death by inches with every leap. When she reached the other side, she found the mechanism that controlled the blades and shut them down. Clear, she called back. Come across. The second chamber was a puzzle room. Mathematical equations covered the walls, and the floor was divided into tiles that would drop away if the wrong answer was given. Max went to work immediately, solving equations faster than most computers, while the others stood, ready to catch him if he made a mistake. He did not make a mistake. The third chamber was a combat simulation. Holographic creatures appeared out of the mist, attacking with claws and teeth and weapons that seemed very real. Danny led the defense, his endurance allowing him to keep fighting long after others would have fallen. Chris used his strength to throw enemies aside. The others formed a circle, protecting the weaker members of the team while fighting off wave after wave of attacks. They passed through chamber after chamber, each one designed to test a different ability. Where one person was weak, another was strong. Where one person struggled, others stepped in to help. They moved like a single organism with 20 parts, each one essential to the whole. Deep in the maze, they encountered Zorath, the Velthari champion. He was lying on the ground, his silver skin scorched and his body battered. The chamber around him had been designed to test creative problem-solving, something that raw strength could not defeat. He had smashed the walls and torn apart the obstacles. He had not been able to find the actual solution. Lisa approached him carefully. Are you injured? Zorath looked up at her with hatred in his eyes. I do not need help from humans. Leave me here. She could have done that. It would have been easy to walk past him and continue toward the end. But that was not who she was. Max, find the solution to this chamber, Lisa ordered. Everyone else, help him up. Zorath struggled as they lifted him, but he was too weak to resist. Max solved the puzzle in 3 minutes, opening the door to the next section of the maze. They carried Zorath through and set him down in a safe area. He asked, his voice confused. Why would you help me? I am your enemy. My people have cheated against you since you arrived. Lisa looked down at him. Because you needed help. That is reason enough. They left him there and continued forward. The final chamber was different from all the others. It was a simple platform in the center of a vast empty space. Around the platform, holographic projections appeared, showing beings from every species in the galaxy. And they were all speaking at once. You do not belong here, the voices said. You are weak. You are primitive. You will fail like every other young species has failed. Go back to your small planet and accept your place in the universe. The noise was overwhelming. It was designed to break the will of any competitor who reached this point. To make them doubt themselves so completely that they simply gave up, Danny stepped onto the platform first. The voices grew louder, focusing on him specifically, telling him that his performance in the endurance trial had been pathetic, that 12th place was nothing to be proud of, that he would never be as good as a Velthari athlete. He stood there and took it. And then he reached back and pulled Kate up onto the platform beside him. One by one, the humans joined him. 20 people standing together while the galaxy screamed at them to fail. The voices listed every weakness, every mistake, every moment of doubt they had ever experienced. And then, something remarkable happened. Danny started laughing. It was a small sound at first, almost lost in the roar of the voices. But it grew louder, and soon Kate was laughing too. And Max, and Chris, and all the others, They were laughing because they realized the truth. The voices were right about everything. They were weak. They were primitive. They had every reason to fail, but they were still standing. The simulation ended. The voices stopped. And the arena erupted in silence. They had done something no species had ever done before. They had completed the gauntlet not as individuals seeking personal glory, but as a team sharing the burden together. The rules had never forbidden it, because no one had ever thought to try. When they emerged from the maze, the stadium was waiting for them. The scoreboard updated, showing that humanity had achieved the highest completion percentage in the history of the gauntlet. Every member of the team had survived. Every challenge had been conquered. Voreth's voice echoed through the arena. This is highly irregular. The gauntlet is traditionally approached as an individual challenge. Lisa stepped forward, exhausted but unbroken. Show me the rule that says competitors cannot work together. Show me the specific text. There was a long pause. The council members consulted with each other. Finally, Voreth spoke again. There is no such rule. The final scores were calculated. Humanity had not won the Galaxy Olympics outright. The Velthari still claimed first place, their cheating in earlier events having secured enough points. But humanity had finished in third place overall, the highest ranking any first-time species had ever achieved. More importantly, they had earned something that could not be measured in points. Respect species that had dismissed them were now watching with genuine interest. Trade offers arrived before they even left the stadium. Alliance proposals followed within hours. And across the galaxy, beings who had always assumed the strong would dominate the weak forever began to wonder if there was another way. On the journey home, Lisa stood in the observation deck with her team. Earth was still days away, but they could see their sun as a tiny point of light among millions of others. We did not actually win, Danny said quietly. Lisa smiled. We showed up. We refused to cheat. We worked together. And we walked away with our heads held high. She turned to look at him. That is a kind of victory they have never seen before. The next Galaxy Olympics would be held in 4 years. And when that time came, humanity would be ready. Not to cheat, not to complain, but to win. And somewhere on Varanthos Prime, Zoroth sat alone in his quarters, thinking about the humans who had helped him when they had every reason not to. He thought about what Lisa had said. Because you needed help. That is reason enough. He did not understand humans. But for the first time in his long life, he found himself wanting to. The stars stretched out before the Endeavor as it carried its crew home. 20 humans who had traveled across the galaxy and discovered something important. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the smartest. But they had something that none of the ancient civilizations had ever developed. They had each other. And that, in the end, was enough.